30% of people don't see the blue tint in the cookie ever again, if that makes sense. Which is funny. So it's like, where's the blue tint gone? So I've not gone yet. So I don't know if I'm going to be one of the 30%.
Don't be a doorstop. Don't be a doorstop. Don't be a doorstop.
Well, hello and welcome to another week of Don't Be a Doorstop. This week I'm trialing this glucose monitor through Zoe. It's not bad. It's all in good, optimistic, kind of like health journey side of stuff. I've, as probably you guys have been bombarded with a bunch of adverts by Zoe, and you've probably watched Don't Be a Doorstop, Diary of a CEO, the other popular podcast, and seen Stephen Bartlett advertise Zoe because he's an investor in Zoe. I finally broken and decided to get involved. So I thought I'll wait until a moment where I can like pay for it, because it's kind of like you pay a monthly membership and also like a batch of money for like the testing. And I decided to go with the full hog, which is a glucose test. They then give you two like basically a gut health test, which you know what that is, and a blood test. So they also give you these cookies to eat. So one is like you eat a normal like white chocolate chip cookie in the morning, like for your breakfast, and then you fast, and then you eat these blue cookies for lunch, and then you fast, and then you take your blood. So that's all good. You then send off your blood test and your gut health test, and 30% of people don't see the blue tint in the cookie ever again, if that makes sense. Which is funny. So it's like, where's the blue tint gone? So I've not gone yet. So I don't know if I'm going to be one of the 30% which don't see the blue tint, because ideally you see the blue tint, and that basically tells you it's a good thing, because it tells you the time it takes for something to be eaten and for it to pass through your gut and come out the other end. So like we're timing that. And so far, it's not yet. And I think I'm nervous, right? You're kind of like nervous. Am I going to be the 30%? So then you can't go because you're nervous, which is fun. But I'm really enjoying it. Like there's this glucose monitor, so you can trial. And all you do is like you touch this this back sensor with your phone, and then it syncs up with your phone. So it's not real time in the sense of my phone's always reading. I have to touch it to get the data, but the data has been stored, so I can look back. So like I ate a pizza or I had a coffee and see the ramifications of that. And I'm surprised that, like, generally speaking, everything's been like cool. There has been one dip, but I was sleeping, so I don't know how that could have been done in any other way. But ultimately, it's your body's going to like readjust, right, and create kind of like something to stop you having the low, as it were. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this new health thing. And Kim was like, you're always into trying these like startups, and I am. And she's like, next time when they're like, there's a startup that can duplicate you and create a clone of you or whatever, you'll be super into it. And yeah, I'm like, no, I draw the line at that one.
I don't know if I could do my work and I could enjoy it.
And if it's cheap enough, then it makes sense. So
we should have a voting thing. We'll try it so you don't have to, and then just document the journey.
Well, this is it. I'm like, so far, I've not seen anything like blatantly like quote unquote bad, because I'm within the like the green thresholds of the glucose monitor generally all the time. And
so you
obviously
eating differently since this? Are you eating slight out of your whole life? Are you quite healthy right now or unhealthy? Give like a bit of a summary to know, have you changed anything? Or
so right now I'm generally, so a couple of weeks ago, switched over to entirely like plant-based meals as like my primary like day to day, but it doesn't mean that I'm not eating meat. It would be like in the week I would eat predominantly like plant-based stuff and a variation of plant-based stuff from a company called Planty. And then like on the weekends, yeah, of course you can have a steak dinner or whatever, right, to like balance it out. So I would probably say like 80% plant-based kind of food. then obviously you add sometimes just like snacks on top of that because, Kim's going through like avoiding certain like types of foods for intolerance reasons. I'm also doing that. But you realize sometimes foods with zero intolerances, or like foods without dairy or without gluten, it doesn't always necessarily mean that they're actually healthier, right? So I've been snacking a little bit in the last week or so. I've like tried to cut out the snacks again to kind of like get back on it because I've noticed my weight has started to come back up. So, and I've not done squash for like 6 months. I've hibernated the winter months. So I would say,
wise, fizz or alcohol.
Drinks wise, I don't drink alcohol generally speaking because it doesn't. I'm not like excited by it, and I don't go out drinking. So I would say like fizzy drinks wise, I would only do like Coca-Cola like when we're out and about, which is once or twice a week. Like weekend
3 times a day just to get my fix.
yeah. That's why I got the sugar shakes. Yeah. So I would say like generally speaking, eating wise, I'm fine, and like exercise wise is where I'm like slumping on because I'll go for a walk, but that's never like raising your heart rate enough to kind of like make a challenge of it, right? So I need to get back into the squash stuff. So I was expecting for the numbers to be reasonably good anyway. And I don't have any like other conditions on top of that. So it's just really interesting to see if there's anything. I have been tempted to do a full blood test.
Eat McDonald's for a week and then just test it every time.
Well, yeah, it would be interesting to see because I'm assuming that when it peaks, I'll have like high energy, and then when it starts to drag back down, I'll get like sleepy and tired. And when I feel like sleepy and tired, I scan it and I'm like, oh, I'm normal. So I'm like, interesting. I thought when I'm getting like sleepy and tired about like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I thought that would be considered kind of like a dip, right? Low sugar, but it's actually not. So in me thinking, oh, I should eat a chocolate bar right now, that's not actually right. It's it feels like there should be another alternative. Like maybe it is like, don't eat a chocolate bar, just sleep or like take a nap, right? Rather than trying to like pick up the curve, which is what I subconsciously think it is, with some sort of like sugar or something. And sometimes it's just like literally just eat a meal as well, right? When you start to get hungry or like, don't snack, eat a meal. So it's really interesting. I was thinking of doing a full blood test because there's a guy on Twitter, again, you know me, technology and all these communities are inspiring me to do crazy things. There's a guy on Twitter that's been taking blood tests, like full blood tests with all the breakdown of it, and he's put it online so he could get people to come and like critique it. So he's had it at like different stages over the past like probably 5-10 years, just to see numbers. And I'm tempted to do something of the same because with like this Huel stuff, really, if you're not deficient in something, I assume that it basically just makes your urine really expensive. Because you're drinking all this extra nutrients, which your body doesn't need, so it just passes it anyway. So I saw somebody like, if you don't know what you're lacking, then basically your urine is just going to be expensive. That's what these things do to you. But if you had an idea, because I have no idea if I'm deficient in anything without obviously having a blood test, but then I'm taking on all this stuff, and you could be like, oh, cool, I mustn't be deficient because I am taking all this stuff on. But you'd want to be like more focused and more like tailored to stuff. I don't know, that there probably is a downside to overdoing nutrients, probably, because there's always a downside to everything, right? Because we always say everything in moderation. So, but who knows? So
you're doing a blood test with Zoe, aren't you? So what does that incorporate?
So the blood test with Zoe has already happened. I don't know to what degree that will go into like all of the depth, but that is going to be along the lines of like energy levels and like my like sugar reaction, like glucose C type stuff, and like sleep and things. So I think it's more like and potentially
would it be like deficiencies?
They do the gut stuff,
not deficiencies like allergies.
I'm not sure if they'll check for allergies, but it might be because it might be like your gut's bad because of X, right? Your gut is not healthy because, yes, you do have also a
McDonald's
like
nearby,
dairy intolerance. yeah. You have a McDonald's intolerance,
or KFC, or any of the other brands.
yeah. So it's really interesting to be like embracing it and not seeing it as a scary thing, but like with all health stuff, really, like proactivity is the best type of activity, right? Like if you're scared about stuff, there's no point waiting, because like naturally things don't get better if you just sit and wait. Like it has to have some aspect of proactivity. So I'm not doing this because I've seen some signs or anything. I'm doing this like way before, so I can like just tailor diets, and then it won't be so like pressured. Because let's say somebody in a fictitious situation was like eating a bunch of chocolate, and then tomorrow they're like, hey, you've got diabetes, so you've got to stop eating chocolate. Like that would be like harder for them to do, but it's like a must, right? So it's like you have to do this. Whereas if you were like eating chocolate and you had a test from like, hey, if you carry on eating chocolate like this, it's probably going to lead to diabetes or whatever. And then you could be like, cool, well, I don't want that to happen, therefore I'll adjust now, so I don't have to have this like forced kind of like decision like made for me because of my like behaviors or whatever. So yeah, it's just like taking it easier, I guess. Rather than being forced, you're always going to perform better. Like if you can jump rather than getting pushed, right? Like, isn't that like the ideal situation that you probably want? So
I'm slightly surprised that they don't do that type of monitoring more, because that would be super handy in like sixth form or uni or start of your career, because then you know what is like normal for you. Like you say, before anything goes bad, it's like, this is your norm. How can you stay within the sort of average sort of boundaries to keep your health?
It's just like benchmarking.
Rather than an extreme.
Yeah, like if we were able to benchmark a little bit better, and I would say the same with like blood tests and stuff. Like when you go and give blood, they should give you like a health breakdown of what they are. So they do say like, hey, we send this off to test. So if you've got anything crazy, we'll come back to you. And if you don't get a call, you're probably fine. Or more so, you are fine, not probably. So I'm like, could you not just run a test on the blood to like give me the breakdown of it? So every time I go and give a blood, I get all these like health insights, which then would inspire me to go and give blood again. And they benefit from my blood. And for the benefit of that, I just get a free health check, like a free like breakdown of my efficiencies or inefficiencies in the blood.
Like an NFC tag that you could just scan and then it's on your iPhone or Android or whatever.
Well, why not just like upload it to your NHS app, and then I'd be able to see it in the NHS app and download it, so then I could have like a digital version of it, right? So I think that would be interesting, because that would definitely get more people giving blood if you did like a free blood health check alongside of it, because you go and give blood every like 6 months. That reminds me, I need to like phone them up to do platelets, because I've finally been like given the green light for platelets again, which is good. So
the green light is behind you.
yeah, this green light over here. So yeah, this Zoe journey is interesting.
Nice.
So I do this, and then it's a month. Once these tests have been like given back to me, they give me some insights, and for 4 months, I just like run the dietary stuff through this subscription. So it's kind of like coaching and diet like suggestions. The glucose monitor only lasts for 14 days. So I can do it for 7 days. And if I want to extend it, I can extend it for 7 days. But the entirety, the max, I'm not sure if it's like the max of the battery or something, but it's like counting down. And the glucose side is like in collaboration with like one of the universities in London, because it's just studying like the effects of food on glucose levels with different people of all ages. So I've opted into that, and that's why I have the glucose patch. If I hadn't opted into that, I wouldn't have done the glucose measuring. I would have just done the eat the cookie and do the blood and do the gut sample. So the glucose is like bonus research for them. And I thought, why not? Because it'll be interesting to see for me. I've never done this before. I've never seen this information, so it'd be cool to see it. Yeah. So yeah, I've been really enjoying that. So.
Very interesting.
Because it's similar with sports people, right? Like sports people are very interested in like performance of self. So diet is important. Like if you were doing blood tests, so I am thinking like if I take a blood test every 6 months to just see my metrics, I would be able to like tweak it. I'm inspired by like the whole Brian Johnson, like his goal is basically not to die. So he's used like £2 million worth of like research and stuff to like perfect this idyllic setup for just like optimum health for him. And he's like put it out in the open, and it's called The Blueprint. So if you're interested in that stuff, search Brian Johnson Blueprint and you'll see all of his like insights and stuff.
Nice. Sounds good. Watch this journey here. See if you get healthier or unhealthy along the way. Hopefully
but
healthier.
slowly start slumping. Yeah. Have you seen?
You realise you use all these unhealthy snacks as like crutches for you to survive life.
Absolutely. Like, we all know that we will have something as like a distraction. And yeah, for me, it is like you'll snack to kind of like keep energy levels up, because really you should go downstairs and make a meal, or you keep energy levels up because it's just like, you just want a bit of like sugar, right? Like it's delayed gratification, right? Delaying something that's good for you is like rare in this society, because you can do the on demand and you can get stuff really quickly, and you can like, you have purchasing power, right? So if you're able to delay it, then it does feel better later down the line. Have you been watching the NFL stuff? The Lewis Reese Zammit?
A little bit on TikTok. I've spotted a couple of things.
So background to this, NFL has this global outreach program that select people from across the globe that are high-performing athletes in completely different sports, to give them the opportunity to like do a kind of like a 12-week training course or an 8-week training course, like intense training course, where they teach them the ins and outs of the NFL, American football game, to then go after that 12 weeks, I think it's 12 weeks, to a, what's it called? It's called a weird name. It's called like a farming name. This like tryout, basically. Okay. What's it called? Can't remember now. It's called like this like tryouts where 26 scouts are there for all the different NFL teams watching, and they might pick these people. So there's basketball players, there's rugby players. They also do the kickers. Do you see that they do the kickers as well? So there's a bunch of kickers that are like rugby kickers, and they just train on kicking the ball over the, like starting the game. So when they kick the ball to start the game, that's a kicker. And also when they, when they do not a scrum thing, I don't know what the American terminology is. When they do a scrum to kick it, throw it, and kick it over. Yeah, like a conversion. So they've done a bunch of those guys as well. And one of the guys is Lewis Reese Zammit, which is a Welsh rugby player. And super interesting how they're training them to not remove their uniqueness of their existing game. So like, he's a great rugby player, so we're trying to like enhance into American football rather than like destroy his ability to play rugby, because who knows, when it comes to the tryouts, that individual might not get in. So you kind of want to still keep their like authentic self, right? Like the reason why you have been chosen is because you were great at rugby. So those things that you were good at in rugby, how can we like enhance them and apply them into the NFL game? So there's like a very, very small, super small episodes on YouTube about them, which I found like really fascinating to know, because they admit that to think that all of the NFL talent is already in America is probably a bit like short-sighted. So we want this like funnel of players from all over the globe to be selected. They basically do like this like world tryouts type thing. They then have selected, and these are the individuals that have got through to the kind of like class of 2024. So I'm very interested about, how Zammit ends up doing that. It would be really cool to see him go through, because at NFL, the reason why they want to do the NFL is because, one, they might be super fans of the NFL, and two, the amount of money you earn in NFL will far exceed anything you could ever do, like internationally for like Wales, or internationally for the Lions, or whatever, from his perspective. Yeah. So it's very interesting.
That is really interesting.
Would you ever want to be converted into another sport? Taking the best of hockey players and converted them to become ice hockey players.
Well, I think if you're getting a decent whack, in the sense that you can be paid for just doing sports, I think most people would be intrigued with that. The fact that you just do sports and just work out, do nutrition, do physios and stuff like that for the rest of your life. I think that's really interesting. I think to some extent I converted myself from football to hockey because I was more into football as a kid, but really enjoyed hockey and noticed that I could probably push it and get higher up the ranks rather than football, because I know everyone goes through them. So I guess I sort of done that, but then didn't realise that, well, as a kid, you don't realise that why it's so difficult is because there's way more money in football than there is hockey. So actually, even by not going up the full pyramid to Premier League, you probably could have a a full-time wage in sort of the Conference League or whatever that you wouldn't be able to do in hockey. But yeah. You learn these later in life, the adulting world.
Of course, the beauty of adulting. And another subject that's come up this week that I've spotted is I was listening to a podcast about, it's called The Bootstrapped Founder, and they interview people that bootstrapped. Again, bootstrapped is where you've self-funded something, where you've not gone to get money from somebody else, like a VC, like a pot of money or a bank, wherever. You funded it yourself. The guy was interviewing a lady that's like a marketeer, and both of them have written books, and the guy interviewing has self-funded the book or self-published, aka written it, uploaded it to like Amazon or whatever, and then being able to download it. He hasn't gone through like a publisher house to like print a bunch of physical books or anything like that, or for them to like loan him money to like make the book happen, all that stuff. And she was saying like it's the first time she's writing a book, and she has like got an agent, and she's trying to get to publishers. And he was asking like, oh, that's super interesting. Like, why haven't you gone the bootstrapped route? And she was like, it's imposter syndrome. I don't feel good enough. So I feel like this official route kind of like avoids kind of like the imposter syndrome, or like has pushed me down that route because of imposter syndrome. And I was like, one, it's really cool when you're able to identify. We've spoken a load about this stuff, right? About like literally just identifying something is really important. Then you can figure out how to act on it. So identifying that you're driven by like a not so positive or like a more negative approach. So let's say you were driven to do something because you were scared of the opinions or valued the opinions of others. Like that's not the best iteration. Let's say you do this like book agent and a publisher and stuff because of your imposter syndrome. You feel like you shouldn't be a writer, or you're not very good writer or whatever. So you enlist all these things. Now, the negatives of that is like, one, she's already noticed that she wants to write a book for like all people, not a specific segment. And the publisher's like, no, you should be writing for women because this is like really like spot on. So they're already like clashing with her in the way that she wants to execute on it. Now, if you were self-funded or self-published, you would have never you wouldn't have to compromise on your message. You wouldn't have to dilute or change. You just write it for the audience you want to write it for, which is again, like you need to basically focus on like the most authentic version, because that has the most like energy and backing behind it. If somebody like pivots you and changes you and you don't agree with it, then you kind of like, it loses the momentum and the energy. So that's like one thing. They change stuff that you don't really want to do. And then the second thing I notice is like, it's great that people recognize stuff, right? Yeah. Amazing that you've realized you're driven by imposter syndrome. That's dope. I also have been driven by imposter syndrome, or like been scared to do something, but you face the fear and do it anyway, right? In her case, I would be like, what's the point of knowing that you were driven by imposter syndrome to get into all these like contracts and stuff and to keep going down that journey? Wouldn't it be like better to be like, hey, the best way to counteract imposter syndrome is face the fear and do it anyway. Therefore, right now I've noticed imposter syndrome is driving this. Let's stop everything. Contractually, like let's pull out of it, let's back out. You always can. Whether or not there's a penalty or whatever, cool, right? Wouldn't it not be better to do that, so then you can start like basically living authentically to like what your gut feels, and kind of like help yourself internally by addressing the fact that you feel imposter syndrome, by like changing in the moment. Now, it takes a lot of courage and bravery, but I'm like, what's the point of knowing if you don't act when you could act? You have the ability to act. Yes, you would annoy a bunch of people, but I've started to think that the most important thing is like there is only one best iteration of yourself, and life is about trying to find that like best iteration of yourself. And if you don't, like, you could veer off and then like never really meet kind of like you might miss the mark, right? So for example, her writing the book, it might miss the mark because she's diluted it, and it won't have the same effect. She'll get another chance and she'll do another version, and that's it. So like progressively, yes, but if you could do it now, why not, right? Like, if you could do it earlier, why not? Again, it comes down to courage and bravery to do that, to annoy people, to disappoint people, all in the name of trying to better yourself and focus on yourself. Because why are you afraid of upsetting people? That in itself is a negative kind of like reason why you would not quit something. You should quit something because it's right for you, regardless of, I don't quit because I'm scared of other people's opinions. But yeah, what's your thoughts on some of that stuff?
I think as well, to add to that of sort of the bravery side, I guess it's just insight as well. Because I guess the difficulty with that imposter syndrome is the thought that if you quit everything, then you'll feel an imposter everywhere and you won't actually get that, I guess, second wave of clarity of, oh, this is the thing that I should be doing moving forward. I think it's the fear that I'll be just drifting into space now with no money and no opportunity, because I guess that naturally our minds are probably more negative when you're in that spiral of, I can never achieve the things I'm achieving. So then it's very tough to be like, why would I want to go in this black hole that I've got nothing helping me? At least I might be in a well, but there's this random ladder that I'm climbing that could get me to somewhere, rather than just like, actually just, no, it's not a ladder, it's actually a treadmill that you're running. If you step off it, you'll get energy. And actually the insight and the influence and the following your gut and learning what that is will come along. But obviously it varies for people. Some, it might be just a week off might do it. Others, it might be 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever. And obviously it's easier if you've got that stability or finances or negotiation with the people around you to figure it out, that if someone's got like a free annex or whatever to suss it out. But I think it is hard because it's that you're feeding that voice that then will only to some extent get stronger regardless of your achievements, which is, it's hard. And it's also sad.
Yeah, I think like most people, let's say in the kind of like old school vibe, most people think you're only going to be promoted because your boss promotes you. You can never like promote yourself, right? So I'm like, with these examples of like the old school like book stuff, yeah, cool. It might be that to go globally in a moment, yes, a publisher is going to know certain tricks and certain people already. So it's going to be harder to get the same thing. But that, like with your own audience, because she has her own audience, I think she'd be able to sell a bunch of books and kind of get a lot of profit from the first iteration. And then like international growth can like come bit by bit, you know, like over time. So I know like you want to go far, so you go together. It's that kind of thing, right? You want to go really, really far. You want to be like, she said, like her goal is literally to walk in an airport and see her book there. Like,
I think that's the thing is with the internet, I think it's easier for people to attach themselves to the individual or the people or the team or the face. Post-internet, I think everything was more categorized. So like, what, are you in music or film? I'm in music. Okay, what music do you want? I want to be pop. But really, you follow the artist. Let's say you follow Beyonce while she's going country and western. Does it mean that no one's listening to her because she's gone in a different category? Well, no, actually, it's probably roped in more people because it's her audience are going, actually, this is something a bit different. I wasn't expecting this. I like the person, so I'm going to follow her. And then there's other people like, I like the country and western music. Actually, I'm going to check it out. Oh, I didn't realize how good she is. And I think that's the thing is with the internet, with, I guess, exposure and intricacies, to some extent, it's bringing more complexities in what you're buying into, which is a great thing. So I think people are more complex than just, oh, they do one track, they stick in the R&B sector in music, and that's, well, actually, they jump around, they do film, they do TV, they do country and western, they do this, and it's sort of, you could do whatever you want. And I guess this will be really interesting of how are we going to go forward through searches and filters? Because I think without having a top 100 in the UK R&B, it's very straightforward. But actually, if it was to some extent a jungle that everyone could be doing a track from country and western to garage and everything in between, how do you link up like those old telephone sort of calls? How do you link up everyone with the audience? I think that would be a very interesting, whoever hacks that, to then be like, oh, this very independent singer is perfect for you, and you don't know why. Like, how would you be able to grasp that to integrate it into someone's search or provide them with that song that they're like, actually, this random person that has created a song in the slumps of India is the best song ever for me. And it's that intricacy that I think that we could go to. That would be very interesting, of like with the AI integrated within searches and that type of thing, rather than a category based search of, you're doing the assumption that I know what I'm searching for and I know what I want, rather than actually there's way more out there than what I know that I want. So could you provide me things that I don't even know what that I want? But
Yeah, it's removing the standard. It's removing the standard typical like earmarks of success, right? You think that a book is successful because it's on the top 10 New York bestseller list. But that's not necessarily always true. There might be a book that never made it to there, but sold loads of copies that just never made it into that list, but is still as good. And I think, yeah, AI with the whole like mass personalization is like a really good kind of way to, if there was like less loyalties to, like, think of like Forbes 30 under 30, like we know that, yes, cool, they are interesting individuals, but I think one time there was somebody that wasn't even under 30 on the list, or like, you know, the people that have been on Forbes 30 under 30 or 40 under 40, like they ended up going to prison because I think it's that they created like that FTX thing or whatever, which is like a crypto exchange, and they were conning a bunch of people. So it's like these like standardized ways of measuring success in this like list format, or like a top 10 or wherever, like removing that to have a bit more like choice and yeah, it would be interesting. And this is it. It's like relative to yourself ultimately, right? To myself, have I been able to sell this book, or do my people like it? Do this audience like it? And then you just scale it like that, rather than like, is my conference in the top 10 conferences to go to? Like, you know, it's, I understand that sometimes that's like a mechanism to bring marketing in, but yeah. Going back to your Beyonce doing country music, she obviously has always loved country because she's from Texas, right? Born and raised in Texas. So that's like a part of her inspiration. And then now she's decided to like actually back it and do something, which I think over time, again, she's been able to do more of the stuff that she wants to do rather than stuff that other people have told her to do, probably, right? And I think like a really easy growth kind of like strategy, you know how people have audiences, because again, we're kind of like talking about leverage, right? If you had leverage, then you wouldn't need to feel imposter syndrome, because you know your audience, you built your audience like you. If you release a book, your audience are probably going to buy it. You don't need to go through an agent to feel like that you're a decent book writer. And I think like really, really simple like growth tactics. You know how these people have YouTube channels and they create a second YouTube channel. So I've been watching this guy that's this guy's literally building an underground bunker underneath his house. And he's like putting this steel structure. So you go underneath his garage, he's got a bunch of tunnels, and he's digging out in front of the garage. And then he's digging out to in front of his house, so he can have a car that raises up from the ground. Can't remember the name of the guy, but he's in the UK. He's a British guy. And he's created this like second channel, which just shows similar content, kind of like behind the scenesy, but similar content. And that now has 1 million subscribers. So I'm like, sometimes when you have an audience already, you know, like when they say like, oh, how do we make more money? And they say like, you know, the easiest way to make more money is just raise your prices. You know, like that's number one. When it comes to like having an audience, the easiest way to make more money or make more like influence is like just have a second channel, because people that like your first channel most likely will also subscribe. So for that one subscriber, you now have like 2 views rather than 1 view. And I was like, where are other ways that easy growth happens? Like randomly, you know, I've been watching Love Island, right? Typically guys in Love Island are all like shaved, their chest shaved, right? They're kind of like the typical guy is like buff, shaved chest, right? And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So I'm like, Veet is a product. So you can either shave your chest with a razor, right? Or you use something like Veet, which is like a cream you put on that it has chemicals in, which like detach your hairs from their roots, and then you can wash them off, right? And I was like, Veet has always been known as this like predominantly like female product, and they now have come up with Veet for men. Now, what's the difference? There is zero chemical difference, right? There's zero like product difference. It's just the packaging is different. So the packaging is like grays and blues rather than pinks and whites. And I'm like, they are literally just, it's the same product, essentially, like the same like cream, just packaged differently. And now they've opened themselves up to a massive like male proportion of the market that they're now getting. And I'm like, it's such a very like simple, easy growth stuff. Yeah, of course, you're now gonna, it costs a bit because you're now making 2 bottles instead of 1 bottle. But the audience reach now is like really
Doubled.
really clever. Now, where would we do that for like us? I played around with maybe I'll play it in the snippet here. Conocemos Oculus. Oculus es el casco de realidad virtual. El creador de Oculus vendió Oculus a Facebook y comenzó una empresa de defensa. Se ha notado que la mejor defensa es tener armamento lo bastante fuerte como para disuadir de ir a la guerra con ese país. There's something called HeyGen, which is an ability to translate a video with a different language, but it sounds like you. So it's like speaking, for example, the example that we'll show is like Spanish with my accent still. So to me, it actually still sounds like me speaking very like amazing Spanish. And it modifies your mouth. So your mouth is moving at the same time that the Spanish is being spoken. The difficulty is sentence lengths are different. So there is a bit where I'm doing this because the Spanish sentence is finished, but the English sentence is still going. So there is that glitch. But really, really good. Like Gary Vee is somebody that's like created a bunch of content. He's created an Arabic version. He's created a Mandarin version, and he's created a Spanish version. But like, again, you're creating like single content and then they're just being repurposed for this stuff. And I'm like, there's such like easy growth mechanisms to
like
do.
Mr. Beast, he's done the same, hasn't he? But he actually gets voice actors. So he'll get voice actors that know, even to the point that know exactly what Mr. Beast is thinking because they've done so many videos of how he does stuff.
Yeah.
He's basically just replicated himself in other languages, which is just really interesting.
And hasn't he used somebody super famous from like is it Nutaro or some sort of like anime cartoon, like some Japanese anime cartoon, and that voiceover is actually his voiceover, his versions of the videos, which is great. Again, like with AI, it'll be cheaper and cheaper to do mass personalization because I think Spotify are trialing doing it with podcasts. They've only done a few like edits of like don't be awesome. Diary of a CEO. It's because they both start with D, I think. It catches me out. Diary of a CEO has been like translated into Spanish, like dynamically, and they're trialing that. So I'm like, easy. If you're looking for easy growth, can you do just like a multilingual version, like a Spanish version, a Chinese version, aka like Mandarin, because I think that's more the predominant. It's predominantly Mandarin, or like an Arabic version, and like would that provide just a complete different audience, same output, same effort, reasonably with AI, and we now have like an audience in, UAE or in Dubai or whatever, because now we're speaking Arabic. It's very, very interesting. Very interesting.
Good way to end. Watch this space.
Yeah, well, next time you'll see us speaking 6 different languages, and just doing a lot of this, like with no audio and just hand movement, because our sentence structures are different, sentence lengths are different. Yeah, on that note, the key takeaway is if you've identified you're driven by an unhelpful pattern, do something about it, because otherwise, what's the point in knowing? If it's imposter syndrome, if it's doing it for the opinions of others, like do something about it.
And do something,
even if it is going to annoy
getting
people.
Support, because you can't do it alone.
Exactly. Watch episode 39 or 41 or whatever it was for the whole Find Your People. It was the last episode, right? Yeah, last week's episode. Can't even know. I don't even know what number we're on. I think we're on 42. Are we? 41. Coming up to 50. We'll have to do something special for 50. Maybe we'll actually do another in-person one. That's a special hour.
One every 50.
One every 50 is in person. So, all right. On that note, keep hammering those nails. Bye for now.
Bye.